Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. It means everything to me. Before we get started, I just want to say to everybody that has been reaching out to me, showing me support, I appreciate you so much. When I tell you I appreciate you, I truly, truly mean it. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Please leave me a comment. Please leave me a like. It would mean so much to me. You guys are just the best, and I thank you, thank you, thank you. At 3:48 p.m. on Sunday, May 12th, 2019, Mother's Day, a body was found wrapped in trash bags inside a shopping cart next to a dumpster in northwest Baltimore, Maryland. Police are trying to identify the body, but the only information they give is that the body is either of a Black or Hispanic woman. On May 16th, 2019, police put the picture on their Facebook page. They ask anyone that saw the cart being pushed or anyone that may have any information to come forward. At this point, the community is on high alert, wondering who could have done something like this and who the victim was. May 21st, 2019, police released this photo of a lip tattoo on the victim's buttocks and ask if anyone recognizes it. So now the community is really confused. Why are the police not releasing a sketch or a picture of the victim? A tattoo of lips on a buttocks is not exactly something that many people in her life would see or know about, since it's in such an intimate place. News stations and community members begin questioning why this is the only information that police are putting out, but Baltimore police remain tight-lipped. There's finally a break in the case a few days later when family members recognize the victim as 43-year-old Dominique Foster and tell police that they know who is responsible for the murder, Dominique's father, 65-year-old Lawrence Banks. This tip sparks police to obtain a search warrant for Banks' apartment that just happens to be adjacent to the place where Dominique's body was found. When police execute the search warrant, they find blood, computers, cell phone, counterfeit money, a yellow raincoat, a pair of boots, and a .380 handgun with 5 bullets in the magazine. Banks was then arrested for illegally obtaining a firearm. May 30th, 2019, police released an article with Baltimore Sun explaining exactly why they couldn't release a picture or sketch of Dominique. This is because she was dismembered, and they were unable to find the head, hands, feet, and lower legs. This is most likely done so that the body would never be able to be identified. June 4th, 2019, a vigil is held at the place where Dominique's body was found. Dominique was a mother of 6 that absolutely adored her children. She was a dog groomer, she loved animals, she was extremely close with her family. She had a bold, bright smile and a beautiful heart. One of Dominique's daughters, who did not want to be identified for safety reasons, told news outlets, quote, "We're just in disbelief. I still feel like she's going to call me. She was everything. She was my best friend. It was Mother's Day, remember? Let that sink in for just a moment." A beautiful mother of 6 was found dismembered next to a dumpster on Mother's Day, end quote.
Dominique Foster was a mother of 6. Her cousin Tamara grew up with her.
All the prayer we can get. Person that did it should be behind bars for life. She left her children behind and family that love her.
She died less than a mile and a half away from where her brother died, which was one of my best friends. And it's just brought back so many memories and hard feelings that we can't keep letting none of this keep going on, man. We can't. If you know something, say something.
And we will thank you.
Prayer and love in the spot where so much evil was discovered.
My family still lives in this community, and I want to feel safe. I want my nieces and nephews to feel safe. I want my friends' kids to feel safe. The monster has to stay where he is, in jail.
Her daughter setting up a GoFundMe to give her a proper burial.
To make sure that her funeral's not a dumpster, that it is a proper place that her family wants.
Sadly, this story gets so much worse. I promise you. According to court documents, Banks has a history of violence and deception. In 1975, just a few days after Christmas, when Dominique was 7 months old, a drunk Banks got into a fight with his then wife, Vivian Banks, telling her that he was going to do something to this baby that you'll regret. Vivian Banks and her mother-in-law hear a loud crash. That loud crash was Lawrence Banks throwing 7-month-old Dominique through a glass door. Dominique was taken to the hospital where she received 24 stitches on her head. But we aren't done yet. Banks was charged with assault. While out on bail awaiting trial, police found the body of his wife, Vivian Banks, in the closet of an East Baltimore apartment that she was renting. Banks was previously charged with assault and intent to murder Vivian after he held an 8-inch steak knife to her throat, but she subsequently asked for the charges to be dropped. Several court documents show that police strongly believe Banks was Vivian's killer, but because her body was so badly decomposed, the medical examiner could not determine a cause of death. Banks was sentenced to 15 years in prison for the assault on Dominique and was released from prison in 1988. But we aren't done yet. This is where I start to get really mad. This is where you will start getting really mad. This is the epitome of a broken system. This is the textbook definition of a broken system. You ready? 4 years after his release from prison, November 19th, 1991, Banks was drinking with 2 friends in Pasadena when he shot and killed one of them, Michael Chisholm. The second friend, Charles Pinnell, fled, but later turned himself in. He pled guilty to an accessory charge and got released on probation after spending 9 months in prison. The same day that Banks killed Michael, he went to see his 17-year-old son, Lawrence Jr. Both of Banks' children, 16-year-old Dominique and 17-year-old Lawrence Jr., were in foster care at the time. Banks was furious at his children for reporting his physical abuse towards them and at Dominique for reporting her sexual abuse at the hands of her father. Banks drove over to the foster home. Lawrence Jr. was home with a broken leg when his father walked in and chased him through the home before fatally shooting him while he crouched in a corner of the kitchen. He was hobbling through the home trying to get to the alarm system so he could press a panic button, but he couldn't get there fast enough. Luckily, Dominique was at school or she would have been killed as well. In September of 1992, Banks made an Alford plea in his son's murder. An Alford plea basically means that he could avoid pleading guilty while also admitting that there was enough evidence to convict him. And by doing this, Banks was given a significantly shorter sentence of not more than 20 years in prison. In May of 1993, Banks pled guilty to killing Chisholm. This time he pled guilty to second-degree murder and got another 20 years. But because both sentences ran concurrently, Banks was released from prison in October of 2002. That's 10 years total for both of those murders. I'm going to let that one sink in for a second. Karen Powell, a spokesperson for the prison system, would tell the Washington Post that Banks was not released on parole and that authorities had no other option than to set him free when they did. She went on to say that under Maryland law, inmates generally only serve 2/3 of their sentences. With credit for good behavior, they must be released early. After his release, Banks changed his name, got remarried, and moved to Laurel, Maryland, but it wouldn't take long for Banks to begin abusing his new wife. Court documents obtained by the Baltimore Sun state that Banks' new wife, Patricia, filed 3 protective orders against him between 2003 and 2004. In May of 2004, Patricia files assault charges against Banks, saying that he threatened to kill her, tried to suffocate her with a pillow, and then choked her with a vacuum cleaner hose, saying, "I must kill you." He then put a knife to her throat and told her that he would dump her body in a river. He would spend 9 months in prison before a jury of his peers found him not guilty.
Her name was Marlene. It was changed to Dominique because of what he did to her brother.
The monster needs to stay behind bars. We just need justice. We really need justice because we hurting all over again. Like it's wrong.
Family and friends gathered for a vigil near the dumpster where Foster's body was found on Mother's Day. Foster's cousin says she was a mother of 6.
She loved her kids. She loved her family. We gonna miss her.
After this prison release, Banks got a new girlfriend and moved into a home with her daughter Lisa, and her baby granddaughter Labia. December 1st, 2006, Lisa obtained a restraining order to protect herself from Banks, with the reason being that he became angry when he found out that his girlfriend was babysitting her granddaughter, Lisa's daughter, and he slapped her during an argument. Once the order was granted, police tried to serve him 3 times. The final time was on December 12, 2006, at the home where they were all living. Just hours later, neighbors would report hearing gunshots. When officers arrived, they found Lisa and her 9-month daughter shot to death in the home. Police notified Banks' parole agent, asking that Banks be held on any parole violations, not notifying parole of protective orders, and not notifying parole of a change of address or both violations. Banks was arrested for the parole violations on December 13, 2006. On December 19th of 2006, Lisa and baby Labia are laid to rest. Bryant Fogel, Labia's father, spoke at the service saying, quote, "She was my best friend. She worked hard to take care of our daughter. It's a shame that Labia didn't get a chance at life. I never got to see my daughter grow up." End quote. 2 more beautiful souls taken at the hands of a monster who shouldn't have been out on the streets to begin with. Because there was no direct link proving that Banks murdered Lisa and Labia, the parole board decided to make Banks finish out his sentence for the murder of Lawrence Jr. and Michael Chisholm. Banks was never charged for the murder of Lisa and baby Labia, and the case remains open. Banks was released from prison once again in 2014. So I suppose he technically served his full 20-year sentence, but not before murdering a mother and her 9-month-old baby. That doesn't seem like a really fair trade-off in my opinion. Banks would lay low for a while after his 2014 release. That is until his daughter Dominique is found murdered, dismembered, and thrown away like trash behind a dumpster on Mother's Day in 2019. Dominique's estranged husband, Willie Foster, spoke to the Sun and told them that he and Dominique had been married for 19 years, and Dominique kept her family far away from Banks. They moved back to Baltimore the year prior to her death only because she wanted to be closer to her sister. And it was only in the months prior to her death that Dominique would begin talking to Banks again. He goes on to say that family members had long predicted that Dominique's life would end at the hands of her father. Can you imagine that? On July 14th, 2019, Lawrence Banks was officially sentenced with the murder of his daughter, mother of 6, Dominique Foster. According to court documents, police began suspecting Banks after the search of his home. Neighbors would tell detectives that they heard arguing on the evening of May 10th. CCTV footage would show a man in a white jacket pushing a shopping cart towards the lot where Dominique's body was found. Banks was charged with first-degree murder, lesser included second-degree murder, first-degree assault, lesser included second-degree assault, and disposal of a body in an unlawful place. Lawrence Banks was found guilty and sentenced to 41 years in prison. Dominique's head has never been found. Okay, guys, if you're still here, thank you. Please let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Have you ever heard of this Alford plea? Because I never heard of it prior to researching this case, so I was curious if anybody was familiar with it. Sparking conversations really helps to bring awareness to things, and I really want that to be a major part of this channel. So please leave comments. Please start conversations between yourselves. And if you haven't liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please do so. Please. It really helps me out, especially since I'm so small. And until next time, guys, I love you all. Thank you so much for your support.
Monique Smith is the founder of Known as Monique, an advocacy organization for missing children and victims of human trafficking. She's a spokesperson for the family of Dominique Foster.
She was a mother of 6. So it was imperative that that family got the answer that they needed. And basically today, they have justice.
Malik Samartne was sentenced to 41 years in jail on second-degree murder and unauthorized disposal of a body charges. Samartne used to be known as Lawrence Banks before he changed his name. Police found a shopping cart with trash bags with Foster's body. Her severed head was never found. Samartne pleaded guilty to murdering a friend and his teenage son in the early 90s, and he was released from jail in 2002. He also served 15 years in prison for assault for throwing Foster through a glass door when she was just 7 months old. Foster's children were out of town. They left a statement with Smith to read to us.
My mother can truly rest in peace, and that my siblings and I are able to finally live in peace. Even though terrible things were said about my mother in an attempt to diminish her character, she will forever be our hero, knowing that she stuck to her word and she stayed clean.
This was a 9-day court process. Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby praised her team for pushing a jury to this decision during Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
This is our 13th out of 14 homicide jury trials that have actually gone to trial, where we've gotten convictions. And I tell you that because the court has been closed for 18 months.